Hello and welcome to another episode, kind of out of retirement in a way, of the Golden Hour Podcast. I'm your host, David Altizer, with
Connor McCaskill.
And man, we've got something exciting to talk about today. I'm holding it here in my hands. Connor, you've got one sitting next to you. This here is the wildly controversial, also quite fun, spoiler alert, but still controversial camera, the Lumix S9.
Yeah.
We both have one, Connor. We both were given this loaner unit by Lumix. This is our disclaimer, by the way. And we have a lot to discuss today. We're going to try to make it as brief as possible, but there's a lot of conversation happening in our industry right now, in all sorts of different paths. But I'll start off by saying this was given to me as a loaner unit by Lumix. Same is true for Connor. We were also very honored, grateful, blessed, thankful for a trip to Japan. This is the second time we've done this. We were blessed to go to the first one last year with the Lumix S5 II.
Right.
So
which I'm filming on right now.
And I'm filming on the X right now as well. Again, all these cameras are loaners. I personally own other cameras. I have a C70 that's collecting dust because I actually find myself enjoying the S5, especially as a webcam these days.
Yeah.
And
I own a A7R5 personally. However, I use them both pretty equally, I would say.
Yeah. Connor and I, for full context, if you're new to this show, finding us now for the first time, this podcast...
That'd be pretty wild.
That would be wild, wouldn't it? This podcast has been around for a long time. I think we started in 2019, I believe, all the way back in Costa Mesa, California, with Polar Pro. They were the people that started this show. They were the people that brought me on as a host, and then Connor and I worked together on a channel, and I was stoked to convince them to hire Connor as well. So from the very beginning, Connor was a part of this podcast, and then after he and I both moved back home to Nashville from California, Polar Pro decided to stop making this podcast and stop paying me to host it. And gratefully, they gave me the channel and gave me the name Golden Hour, which I'm stoked that we were able to grab that name. Although there's now a comedy show that's much more popular. But then,
we've talked about all of that stuff before.
Yeah. So then Connor and I have been doing this show for the last year, or two, I guess. And so things have been crazy. I've been busy with thumbnails. I don't think this show is done forever. I don't want to say that it's over, but every once in a while we'll pop in here and share our thoughts. And I think this is a worthy cause. A lot of interesting things to talk about with this camera, the Lumix S9. Welcome, everybody, to the Golden Hour Podcast. We've got a bunch of topics that we're going to cover in today's episode. One of them being, just to address the elephant in the room, some of the controversies about YouTubers being flown to events, not just Lumix, but Sony. Anyways, just the overall industry, tech camera review world with these events and the free loaner cameras. It's seemingly striking a nerve with people, the potential bias or unbiasedness of certain reviewers versus others. We obviously have a lot of thoughts about this, and we're going to try to do our best to be as open and honest and authentic as possible. Hopefully all our disclaimers are good. But let's first start by talking about the camera itself. Connor and I both had well over a week, technically 10 days with this camera. I've enjoyed using it, taking pictures of my kids over the last couple of days. And obviously we had a wonderful, amazing trip to Japan, and we were able to use the camera in the streets of Osaka and other places. So, we kind of run it through its paces a little bit, and we have some thoughts on it. Let's just get started with just initial feedback, Connor. What are your thoughts on the Lumix S9?
So to be completely upfront, when we were sitting there at the Lumix announcement, they did this whole press thing, and they had lights, and they're hyping it up, right? Of course they're hyping it up. They want us to like the camera. When they dropped it and we were looking at it, I think everybody in the crowd their initial reaction is pretty similar to what I've been reading in the comments. It's like, I don't get it. It has really weird issues. I don't understand how I would use this. I think that was really the thing that I kept saying is, I don't know how this fits in my bag. Like, why would I use this? I kept saying that. Why? And again, I see that echoed in my comments and in other people's comments of this camera, because it just, you agree with that, right, Dave? It just has weird, it's like they made really strange choices, because I look at it and I'm like, oh, it's a photography camera. It looks like a Leica M11, right? Mm-hmm. But then it has so many issues, like an electronic shutter instead of a manual shutter or a mechanical shutter. And then the big one, no EVF, right?
Yes.
That's a big one. And for a lot of people, I don't really care about flash, but people wanted to be able to, communicate with a hot shoe. You can't do that with this either. So just a lot of weird issues. But for me, as I started to use it, I was like, okay, well, if it's not a photography camera, I'll use it for video. And as we were hanging out with our buddies and our friends, I kept just taking photos with it, just because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to make yet. I'll just shoot photos with it for now. And I just kept doing that and kept doing it. And then at a certain point, I realized I was like, I don't even want to shoot video with this. I'm like, I'm having a blast shooting photos on this camera, even though it does have those issues. So I think that this camera is weird because it doesn't make sense. It looks like it should be awful. But then when I actually used it, I ended up liking it a lot. And I don't know how you feel, Dave.
I completely agree, actually. And I think that it's, again, there's an overarching, interesting conversation happening in our small little niche. And I think it's important to remember that we are camera gear reviewers. That's why I kind of gave a bit of that setup at the beginning. We've been doing this for years, guys. We've been reviewing all sorts of cameras. A lot of them we purchased with our own money, and some of them were also given to us to keep. Some of them were given to us as loaners. So there's really nothing new here from the types of videos that we made, and yet there's still a lot of backlash. Like, you guys are just hyping this thing up. At the end of the day, yes, there's a lot of issues, I guess you could say, with this, but if I just remove all other thoughts and just think like, what do I actually think about this camera when it's in my hands and I actually use it? It's fun. It's a fun camera to use. It's really small. It might not be getting across. It is hard to sort of judge how big something is through a video, obviously. If you happen to own an iPhone 15 Pro, or honestly, any iPhone normal size, that is essentially how wide it is. Actually, a little smaller, if you can see here in the video. It's actually a little bit smaller in terms of width, and then in terms of
a little thicker.
It's obviously it's quite a bit.
A lot thicker.
It's quite a bit thicker, but compared to your standard hybrid camera, and I'll hold up the S5. It's almost like, look at that. It's actually probably the thickness of the S5 if you removed the grip. It's that kind of long, skinny part of the camera there. If you had an S5 Mark II and you look at it, like look at where the mode dial is and stuff, that kind of long, skinny area right here, they basically just trimmed the grip off. It seems like they kind of used maybe even used some similar machining there, because it's a similar kind of material on the top.
Right.
And what I love about the aesthetic of it is that it does remind me quite a bit of a Leica camera. And obviously we know that Panasonic and Leica have a real actual working relationship. And so did Leica have a hand in this? I don't know. Maybe, if anything, the Lumix team probably is inspired by Leica's design language. And, when we talk about Sony, and if you're going to compare this to other cameras, technology and settings and features aside, I like how this looks. It looks cool. It really does. Yeah. It's clean. In fact, Cam Mackey was talking about how he left the black tape on his camera. Do you still have the black tape on your camera?
Oh yeah. So I totally agree. I might make it more permanent than this, but it looks better blacked out.
I think it looks a lot cleaner blacked out. The white Lumix logo there is quite, quite in your face, but it makes sense that it's there. But yeah, we've got a flip screen built in, same one from the S5. This is not a crappy flip screen. This is a better flip screen than my C70 has.
That's very true. It's actually it's what's the word I would use for it? It's like robust.
Yeah, it's a very robust flip screen. It seems to be the same mechanism from the S5. I don't know if that's true. We did lose the headphone jack, but we still have a mic jack.
Right.
A lot of people were upset about that, and for very valid reasons. Everybody has their own reasons. But if we're to compare it to past cameras from Canon and others, especially a couple years ago, that was not the norm to have headphone jacks in consumer cameras. That's not a pass, I guess. But
I will say that I used this camera with Cam Mackey, and we did or rather he set it up. So I should say he set up a documentary while we were in Japan in Kyoto. And we were using the S9 because, of course, why would we not try the S9 in this situation? Does it make sense? Maybe not, but we thought we might as well try, especially because it does anamorphic support. So we were shooting anamorphic. It was ridiculous. But yeah, not having the ability to monitor audio is definitely risky in a situation like that. Right now, you could use a microphone that allows you to plug in and monitor from the microphone.
Exactly.
That is the solution. That's the solution to this issue.
And there's
but it would be nice to have it.
Yeah, there's a lot of those solutions now. You got to remember, we are living in a day and age where a lot of those problems have been solved. If it was 2016, 2017, when we got started, a lot of these microphones didn't have headphone jacks. But I believe the Rode Wireless Go Pro 2s have headphone jacks on the receivers, so you can actually monitor your audio from those little wireless lavs.
I don't think that's true. Let me look. I have them. You can keep talking though.
And then this is a mic that I actually really enjoy using. It's the Joby mic. Again, full disclosure, this was given to me by Joby as well. But this is the mic that if I were to spend my hard-earned cash, I think it's got a really good clean audio. And I actually prefer the sound of this over the Rode. And it seems to be much more reliable than the Deity mics that I've used in the past. And I've been given a lot of Deity mics in the past. But I really like this Joby mic. It's really clean. It's really, it got some good features. And there's a nice little headphone jack right here. So you get your output to your camera, and then you can plug your headphones directly in here and monitor if necessary.
Yeah, so I actually do have the Wireless Pro 2 here, and this is the receiver, and it does not have a headphone jack.
This is future Dave doing a little voiceover here. I was actually confused with the DJI Mic 2, which does have both an output jack and a headphone out jack on the receiver that you put on the camera. So that means that if you want to use one of those small little wireless mic setups with the very small S9, that may be your best solution. This is how we used to kind of live our life as camera nerds, because again, I hate to break it to you, there's no such thing as the perfect camera.
I think that's kind of the thing, is there's always going to be something that is a negative with a camera, and it's not necessarily a negative. It's just maybe they didn't lean so hard into this or that, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to decide as a purchaser if it's bad or not for you. It doesn't make the whole product bad, right? Because at the end of the day, this product is not bad. I would say that if anything, it's confused.
Yes.
It doesn't 100% know what it wants to be, because I look at it and it screams to me photographer, hipster camera, which I think is what they were maybe going for, but they just didn't go far enough, in my opinion, because of those things that they have. But they are advertising it as a content creation camera. And if you look at it through that lens of okay, I'm a TikToker, I make food reviews on TikTok, this is a really enticing option for someone like that, right? This is not enticing for someone making reviews of cameras, and this is not enticing for someone who's doing interviews, right?
Or the filmmaking kind of niche or crowd of the freelance filmmaker types who are the people who would buy an S5 II as their main workhorse camera, which I think is where a lot of the disconnect comes from. A lot of the people who are invited to this event have audiences that would much prefer using an S5 II as their main camera because it doesn't have those limitations. It has a fan. It's got dual SD card slots. It's got a nice chonky HDMI port. It's got, a nice grip, an EVF, a hot shoe. Obviously, yeah, this is a better camera for a pro, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But our good friend Tyler Stallman, he made this really interesting product that Condor Blue, full disclosure, Condor Blue sent me.
Well, you're also good friends with Tyler, but yeah.
Good friends with Tyler, good friends with Lucas. So there's a lot of incentive here to be nice about it, but I'll just be honest and say this is a really interesting and cool product. It's not for me because anytime I use my phone to record on a tripod, I'm not shooting vertical. I'm usually shooting horizontal because I'm just using my phone to shoot a YouTube video or something, and my YouTube videos are horizontal. But there is a market for this. Condor Blue is selling these. Not a lot of people buy it in our filmmaking niche, but Tyler Stallman is a professional Instagram, Reels videographer for his wife. His wife is an influencer. She's for lack of a better term, she is a legitimate full-time influencer. She travels the world, going to different hotels and trying different things. And She has an entire business, a very lucrative, I don't even know exactly how much money they're making, but it's a significant full-time job. And Tyler uses his phone with this mount all the time for high-paying client jobs. Like, he's getting paid significant money. So he is a pro, but it's for Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat or whatever. And I think this is closer to that, like, for that group of people, maybe even a little less pro than how I'm kind of like talking Tyler up. This is more of like a younger, just look at the marketing material. It's like all these young TikTok influencer people. It's like almost geared for like high schoolers or like Gen Z or something.
I don't know that I agree with that because at the end of the day, this is my opinion, it's the S5 II internals in this thing.
I know.
So its quality is actually good.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just think maybe
again, it's confused. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's just the problem, and that's what I've been kind of racking my brain. I haven't even shot or finished like my entire video because I keep being unsure of what to say because this is a weird Frankenstein camera because they're marketing it for the younger TikTok-y, Snapchat-y people, but it's got open gate LUTs and anamorphic shooting and all the pro stuff that we use in the S5 II. And there's no compromise in terms of image quality. If you were to look at footage from this camera, the S9, and compare it to footage from the S5 II, you would see no difference with the exception of, maybe some of those really high pro, I think the all-eye recording mode isn't there. There's no ProRes RAW external.
Sure.
There's no ProRes recording. But, from a pure, you still get 10-bit 422 though. You can still shoot 6K 420 10-bit in Vlog on this.
In OpenGate.
And if you're talking about, and now let's play a hypothetical game of being a documentary filmmaker, a legitimate, real, actual filmmaker. This is a cool little camera to steal shots with if you're in a situation where you can't bring a full rig. We were making that argument with the iPhone, with the Apple Log, and I still think that's true. Apple Log on the new iPhone is a superpower that filmmakers can use to just
100
instantly be getting really good footage, and nobody will know it because you're shooting on a phone. But if the S5 II is your A camera and your main camera, what better under the hood camera to use than the S9, because it's the exact same sensor, the exact same color science, and it's way less what's the word I'm looking for? It's more discreet is what I'm looking for. And it's fun. It kind of looks like a toy. Especially with this actual little toy lens, which is a whole nother discussion.
Personally, that lens I do think is a miss, but I think some people got some really good photos with it, but I do think it's a little bit of a miss.
I think so. Let's talk about it. There's a 26 millimeter f8 constant pancake lens is what it is, which they would I think even Panasonic themselves would say this is almost like a body cap lens. They have like a special coating on here apparently that will help keep fingerprints, dust, and water off. That's what I was told, at least. We'll see. Because there's not even a lens cap. They didn't even give us a lens cap. There's not a filter thread on here. They are charging $200 for this lens, and that is absolutely, in my opinion, a joke. I think this lens is worth $29, in my opinion. It's good.
Yeah.
But
up to 50.
It may be, yeah, sure. It's Lumix branded, so okay, fine. If it was a Chinese-made off-brand and it was $29, but like, yeah, okay, fine. It's a Lumix branded lens, $49.99. Cool. That's a fun little $50 take everywhere lens. $200, you got to be kidding me. I could get plenty other, I even looked because I was curious. I was like, what other like pancake lenses are there? Now, pancake lenses that are this small for full frame do have constant aperture, constant apertures. That is a thing. So this isn't like an unheard thing. That's how you're able to make it so small. But there's other options that are like f5.6 instead of f8, and it's a metal. It's a metal housing with like focus marks. This doesn't even have.
Or even, I think Canon has a pancake lens that's like a f2.8 with autofocus. It's like a little bit bigger.
And Nikon,
yeah,
Nikon's ZF, they made two versions of. There's a 28 millimeter and a 40 millimeter. I think they're both f2.8, I believe. And they're little pancake lenses, and they're autofocus. They actually are full autofocus, and they have retro housing. So I think we're not getting the full story, because one of the things they announced at the announcement is a very compact kit lens. Now, again, this is not a pro person's lens, but it's an 18 to 40, I think f4 to 5.6 aperture, which when you're outdoors is fine. Dual native ISO on this camera is great. You can shoot pretty good in low light on this camera. So even with a 5.6 lens, you can kind of get away with it. Still, obviously not ideal, not a pro lens, but this isn't really supposed to be a pro camera. This is your pro camera, the S5, okay? So let's try to like remember who this is for. But that would be a really fun lens to have. An 18 millimeter on a very compact, I think it's like a, just a tiny little zoom lens. That's going to be fun. So I'm looking forward to that. And more lenses need to come from Panasonic that are tiny. They need to make tiny lenses.
Since we're talking about lenses, this is the lens I used the whole time when I was in Japan, like literally the whole time, unless I was using an anamorphic lens. This is the 35 millimeter 1.8. Now, this lens, it worked amazing actually for me because it's light. So even though it's going to stick out from the camera quite a ways, which is not what the pancake lens is doing, it's incredibly light, so it doesn't mess with your wrist at all, which is great. I do wish that they made a 35 mil pancake lens with autofocus, even if it was like something stupid like a 5.6 or something. That would be a great pairing with this. But I will say this 35 mil lens, I just treated it like a street photography camera the whole time, and this was a beautiful pairing. The other way that I would use this camera,
here's the
lens-wise, the 50. The other way I would use this camera is vintage lenses.
Nice.
Because of course, why wouldn't you? So this is the 50 millimeter Zeiss 1.4. This is the AEJ, I believe. I got it wrong in my video. I said it was the MMJ. I got lots of people telling me I was wrong. I'm sorry. You guys are really good at that. Anyways, but
they have nothing else
saying
to do. I am that same person though. I must be honest. I sometimes will be tempted to leave comments like, you're wrong about that.
Yeah, but if I'm going to use manual focus, right, like with the f8 nonsense lens, I'm just going to buy a vintage lens. Now, this one was, I think if you buy it, like a typical price is like $300 to $400, which is going to be more than that pancake lens that we're talking about. This is more capable. But you can find, like, for instance, the Helios 58 millimeter that everyone loves. I have one. Everyone has one pretty much. You can buy those for like $30 to $60, depending on the quality, right? So there are lens options that you could look into with this camera, especially, again, if we're talking photography. You could use this for video too. This lens is actually great for video. That you're not going to kill your bank to purchase, right? Because one of the things Dave and I kept talking about with this camera is that the $1,500 price tag is probably its biggest hiccup, not because it's not necessarily worth $1,500, but because of once you add lenses, it increases the price, and the S5 II exists at all.
Yes.
If the S5 II, I think the S5 II is priced way too cheap for what it's capable of. I think that they did that to be competitive with Sony. I think it worked because it's a beautiful camera for an absurd price, $2,000 or less when it's on sale.
I mentioned it in Brandon Washington's podcast today. I found one on eBay yesterday. It might be gone now. Buy it now, used, $1,300. So
that's amazing.
$200 cheaper than this new S9 with none of the limitations in terms of the pro features. The limitation of an S5 is its size, I guess, is the flip side of that. But
size and form factor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to what I was saying is you don't have to buy cameras when they're new. In fact, I rarely do. I remember, the first camera I bought was the Canon 70D, and I could not afford it at full price. And I remember just waiting. I would save my money, and I waited until it went on sale. I think it went on sale with a lens for like $1,300, and then I snagged it, right? My A7R5, I did not buy that at full price. I bought it used from a friend for like $2,800, right? This camera will go on sale, and it'll probably be on sale by the time Christmas rolls around. Who knows, right? So maybe it'll be $1,300, which I think $1,300 is probably where this camera needs to live, because it doesn't have like the EVF and stuff like that. But I do think weirdly, $1,500 is not absurd. It's the fact that it's absurd when the S5 II exists, and that's what makes it absurd. And if that's the case, and you do think that that makes this not worth it, which for a lot of people it's totally won't be, buy the S5 II, because that's a stellar camera.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I think if this interests you, but the price point is kind of just like, I don't know, just wait. Be patient. This thing will go on sale. People will be selling these used after a time. By the way, I have this set up in a kind of probably the ideal YouTuber vloggy mode. This is the really nice 18 millimeter f1.8 lens,
right? Which
is a really fast wide angle prime, which you just don't see that often. With my Joby, mic, which gives me the ability to monitor the audio with the headphone jack if necessary. And as a video camera for that kind of run and gun on a GorillaPod YouTuber-y thing, I think you're not really going to run up, like, at least if I'm being really honest, even the way we used to shoot our Kiyotika videos, I don't know if even my little rants that I would go on, even when we were on location, would go past 15 minutes. And even if it did, you would just say, hey, pause real quick, I got to reset. And then you would just go, boop. And then it's like, okay.
Well, to be honest, my arms would get tired before 15 minutes.
Exactly.
So I probably would have been like, can we please cut it?
Yeah. And you would
back then.
And you would kind of think that because the camera is so much smaller than the S5 II, that they would maybe take a hit on the stabilization, but there's no difference. It's the same unit, and I think that might be why the mechanical shutter is gone. They prioritized this small form factor, but they also prioritized the IBIS. It's like, would you rather have a mechanical shutter with no IBIS, or would you rather have IBIS with no mechanical shutter? Personally, for me, as a video guy and as a massive fan of the stabilization in the S5, and I would say too, like, even to the Sony fanboys or other camera companies, I think it's undeniable. This is the best stabilization on the market, like, bar none. Forget the price point, forget the budget aspect of the S5 II. This is absolutely, in my opinion, the best stabilization I've seen on any camera, period. So you get that with this little thing. And that's cool. And it's really cool.
And not to mention with stabilization, again, is it stupid? Sure. But anamorphic supported stabilization is in here as well. I mean, like, so not only can I do 2x D squeeze, I can also hand hold my 2x Kato lenses that I'm borrowing from Blazar. I do not get to own those. My gosh, I wish I could. With this, so like when people are dogging on this camera, I get it. I think that dogging on the camera is kind of a justified. I think that where people have really super gone wrong lately is we're starting to dog on people. And I just don't know that that is necessary. I understand that people are frustrated, but I just don't think that that's...
Are you willing to share some of your personal feelings on that? Did you feel attacked in any way? And can you, in a honoring way of, the way you felt, kind of just share that with us? Or, I mean, did you feel attacked?
Yeah, I'll keep this brief and I don't want to stir the pot any more than the pot has been stirred, right? Because it's been a lot, right? Last 2 days. Here's the deal. At the end of the day, guys, we got to understand that our words, they have effect outside even of necessarily your target, your intended target, right? So understand that people here, we're just doing our best. I believe in the community. One of the things that we've always talked about, Dave, with the camera community is that we've just felt like the people in it are honest, good people. And that's one of the things that has drawn us to this. And the reason why we stay oftentimes, right? One of the best parts about these trips isn't, oh boy, I get to touch this Lumix camera. Ooh, I mean, that is cool. But like, that's not what I'm like, oh, Dave, I can't wait to mess with this Lumix camera. It's always, I can't wait to hang out with these people, right? Because these people are good people.
They're our friends. It's the only place in the world, really, when we're all together at NAB or all these things, it's like these people really do understand our whole, like, we're very like-minded because not only are we video and camera nerds, but we're also YouTubers, and that is a very small niche. And so it does feel exciting for us to be around each other because we can really share our concerns with things or the struggles that we're having, and we all actually understand it. My wife doesn't fully understand my job. Some of my closest friends at my church and my neighbors here, they don't really understand what I do. And this is the one time where we're all together, we're very like-minded. It's a brotherhood kind of feeling, and it's awesome. And if you want to be a part of that, please, like, come say hi.
Start making YouTube videos.
Start making YouTube videos and come to NAB and hang out. There's a lot of great people that I've met along the way who aren't actually active YouTube creators, but they're fans of that kind of world, and they're very active in the comments. They show up on live streams. They show up on Twitter, and then they come to NAB and we get to hang out and meet. And there's no hierarchy really here. Like I've never felt competitive with people. It's really a brotherhood of people, and sisterhood of very few, but there are some, and there are amazing women who are part of this group as well. So anyways, I just wanted to cut that in there, but
I think the point that I'm trying to make is, understand who you're watching and why you're watching them, right? In general. I mean, you could almost look at all of us like movie critics, right? At the end of the day, we're just giving our opinions, right? Like, I'm just telling you, this is why I like the thing, or this is why I dislike the thing. In fact, in my video, I about a third of the video is me saying I dislike it. And you either trust me or you don't, right? I think that that's fine. There's plenty of people that I watch that's like, oh, I didn't agree with that one statement, right? But that doesn't mean that I discount their whole person. And I feel like that's what it's kind of felt like over the last couple of days. So I would just say, be careful, guys. Like let's try to just, bury the hatchet. Let's try to be nice to each other. Everyone here are real people. That's the viewers and that's the creators. We're all trying to do our best. And I do think as creators, we can always be doing better to disclose, when things are loaned to us or when things are given to us or when we're being paid. I think that a lot of us do genuinely try to articulate that. We're not always the best. And then again, as a viewer, you guys need to understand that, like, there is probably going to be some inherent bias because they did fly us to Japan. So maybe I'm 10% nicer than I should be. But you also understand that context. So you guys are going to be able to see through that and go, okay, maybe he's being a little bit nice, but this, and this, those are deal breakers for me, so I don't think I want it. Or this, and this, they're a problem, but I really like this other thing, so I think I'll still buy it. Like, those are the decisions that you guys have to make on your own end that we are not responsible for. We are responsible to tell you when we receive things for free or when we get paid for things, and that's it. And then provide the content as best and honest as we can, right? And as long as those things are being done, I don't think that any of what I've been seeing is necessary at all.
Mm-hmm. And it is interesting because I think it's just kind of all been piling up because I believe maybe Sony was the first company to start doing this. And because everybody uses Sony cameras, it seems kind of like they get a pass almost. Like I was talking to everybody and it's like a lot of people who are complaining about what's going on with Lumix were also saying, yeah, I just got the email for the Sony Kando trip and I'm
Right.
going to be going. So let's not be hypocritical here, you know, and just be honest. Although I do think, again, maybe it's just kind of like this is like the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's fair too. And it's also coming off of a lot of controversy around the Insta360 thing. There is a lot of content being made that is sponsored, and so it just feels like a big kind of mess of like, okay, is this actually a real review or is it sponsored? And like as a viewer, maybe that's a little exhausting, and maybe you're just like, man, just can you guys just review stuff and just give me your honest feedback? And that's a fair criticism, and I think we as creators should consider that. And you know, but it's also up to us as a person, as a human being, to decide what kind of content we want to make. If I feel led to stop receiving free stuff and just buy whatever I want and review that, then hopefully you guys will find my content and enjoy it. And if you're a person who's willing to receive the product and just have full disclosures and be honest as possible, and people watch it, at the end of the day, we're all, you know, adults, and you can decide to buy the camera or not. This is a free country. We're able to say what we want. Like,
yeah.
And I think,
well, we're in America, but this is global, but yeah.
Ultimately,
we're in America. Can you tell?
Yeah. If you can't tell,
Can't tell.
Ultimately, I think truth and honesty will always prevail. And, if somebody is being completely dishonest, I think, I don't believe in karma at all, but I do believe that, people can tell when something is true or not, whether it's like literally or if it's almost like just subconsciously. There is something in human nature that can kind of feel like something's off here. And maybe that is what everybody's experiencing, is like, why do I feel off? And I've even been asking that same question myself, like, is something off? And I'm like, I think it is. I think the fact that we are in this isolated bubble of we're having a lot of fun. And like I was saying, it's not about the camera. It's actually the fact that we're all around each other. If we were if everybody got flown out to some random city in Ohio.
Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska. Yeah, sure. I was trying to pick a very neutral kind of.
Oh, Ohio. That works.
Yeah, not
Cleveland.
Like, I was trying to pick like essentially a boring location. Like,
right.
If you put all of us YouTubers.
Sorry, Terry.
I think you see where I'm going with this. If you put all of us in that same, it doesn't matter where we're at. We're going to have a ton of fun because we're going to be cracking jokes, just talking,
drinking beers,
hanging
and shooting
out
with cameras. And
and so that energy is kind of there in the footage, I think, in Japan, because we're all together and we're having fun. But just put us in any location, we're going to have fun. And that's hopefully conveyed through the camera. Like, and maybe that's why some people would enjoy watching it, is like you're coming along for the ride and we're trying to bring you into that and have fun together and have a conversation. And at least that's my perspective. And like, I watched all the videos. I watched Kai, I watched DP Review, Gordon Lang, I watched your video, obviously, Cam's, Terry's, Kofi's, like, I think, and then a couple others. I don't remember all of them, but
there's a lot.
And I had fun watching it, and it was, you know, but again, maybe my perspective skewed because I was there. So it's like, oh, what was their perspective? Right. So anyways, I think it's just important to try to just be an adult and just maybe even check yourself, like, and think about like where we're coming from too. Obviously, we're humans. We're just doing our best. And maybe there are some people that are more willing to kind of blur that line of like sponsored / biased versus other people who aren't. And that's up to you to decide.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately the view count, the subscriber base, at the end of the day, that's the people you're going to just have to decide who to follow and who not to. And that'll maybe teach that creator something if they need to learn something or not. And I'm just going to do what I do, and Connor's going to do what he does. I believe Connor and I have very similar morals in this. Connor, I think you did a great job disclosing it.
Thank you.
I found no issues with your video personally. I thought it was very fair. You had positives and negatives, and the positives are true. You're not lying. You had fun with it.
No.
And you got some cool photos. So it's like, good grief.
I think that there are things in this camera, and I think I said this in my video, that I want to be applied across the board in the industry because they're genuinely fun. I don't know if I will make this, but I am planning on something similar along this lines. I want to make a video titled "Cameras Used to Be Fun," because I think we've gotten away from that. We're so hypercritical of these cameras because we're like, it has to serve me for work. It's like cameras, everyone owned a camera in like the 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever, right? And it was just to document life and to have fun. And that was it. There was journalism. They had cameras. They used them professionally. But most people bought a camera just to be fun. And I think that's why all of us initially disliked this camera, because we were in that work mentality. How do I make this work for YouTube? How do I make this work, right? And then we all used it. And then we realized it like tickled that part of our brain that was like, whoa, wait a minute. This camera is just kind of fun. And that's weirdly enough sometimes, right? This is not a camera that I would buy if you are a working professional and that's what you're trying to do with this. You could make it work, but I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't buy this camera if it's the only camera you could afford to buy. I probably would look for a used S5 II, right? This camera I would recommend buying for people who are already in the Lumix system and they're looking for a B camera. I think it's a great B camera. And then I would also recommend it for people who, you know, you got a little extra cash to burn. There's some of us out there. Now you're either going to buy an X100 you're going to buy a Lumix S9, or if you have a lot of cash to burn, you're going to buy a Leica, right? That's what this camera is to me. And just because it doesn't work for professional work doesn't mean it's not worth talking about.
Yes. This would be it'd be so cool if they did an S9X, you know, that had an EVF, mechanical shutter, weather sealed. I'd be okay with it being a little bit chunkier if necessary, just a tad, but keep that kind of rangefinder, more retro kind of aesthetic. Maybe even add a mechanical shutter dial on the top, similar to a Fuji, which I really like for this format of shooting, because you can kind of shoot with the screen closed and just kind of look down, adjust your shutter speed here, have an aperture ring on your lens, and then have ISO on the dial, and you kind of have everything you need within arm's reach without having to look at a screen, which I really like. I wish that was the case, but
ironically with this camera, you have no choice but to look at the screen because of the no rangefinder. So one of the things that I think people are going to bring up is, why would I buy this camera over a Canon R8, right? And the reason that I would recommend this over that, at least in this current market that we live in, is I don't think Canon is really worth investing in right now, right? So one of the things that you have to make the choice of when you're buying a camera is, what system do I want to grow into? So that's why I can't remember, someone was asking me, it's like, should I buy, I can't remember what Sony camera it was, but a Sony camera or an equivalent Canon, I think it was the R10. And I said, listen, I think on paper right now, the R10 is a better choice. I said, but here's the thing. Do you want to upgrade because eventually you're going to want to upgrade. Do you want to upgrade into the Canon system, or do you want to upgrade into the Sony system? And right now in today's market, I would recommend upgrading in the Sony system. Same thing could be applied with Lumix. I think Lumix is actually a really good system to be in right now. They're innovating like crazy, I think. They're making some bad choices. Obviously, with the S9, they made some poor choices. They made some good choices. But I think that Lumix, one of the things I've always liked about Lumix is that they really feel like they're listening to feedback in the last 2 years, right? Like something changed. I think they were kind of stuck in their ways. And then suddenly they were like, what if we just gave them what they wanted, right? And that's kind of what we're in, this renaissance for Lumix. So I feel like if you're going to live in a system right now, I think Lumix and Sony are kind of the options. So then at that point, why would you buy this over FX30, right? Well, it's like, well, they do very different things or whatever, right? Insert Sony camera here. At the end of the day, they're doing very different things. So What is this camera doing that you like or dislike? Is that enough? What is Sony doing that you like or dislike? Is that enough? And then make a choice.
Absolutely. And I think this thing has personality, if I were to use that adjective. This camera has personality, and of course, it's an inanimate object. What does that mean? They're making decisions. Panasonic is making decisions that a lot of companies kind of wouldn't make, just because it's like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
And that's why we're saying that. It's like, well, this is a weird thing, but they're at least trying. And I think we should give them some credit as a company to say, hey, you guys tried something very interesting. They made some weird choices here, like losing the mechanical shutter, all the things that we've listed a million times already. But they were choices that I think had to be made, whether it was for budgetary reasons or for size reasons. And it's like, is this going to work? I don't know, but that's why they're doing it, because Lumix, if you were to make a list of the top like mirrorless camera companies, I would assume that Sony would be number one at this point. Canon would be number two, if not still number one, but Sony, Canon are definitely top tier.
They're up there.
And then Nikon, and then Fuji, and then maybe even Olympus above Lumix, but Lumix and Olympus are similar. I'm surprised every time I see camera sale numbers, how high Olympus is compared to what the market is, especially in Asian countries. It seems that they have a bigger foothold. But anyways, this is a pretty kind of like, I hate to say it, not to throw shade at Lumix, but it's like, it's true. They need to kind of innovate and compete in an interesting and unique way. And so this is them making a swing. This is them trying something and taking a bit of a risk in a way. We haven't even talked about the app and the LUTs and all that. And that's another thing that they're trying that nobody's done before, which is kind of fun. And that's one of the things that I like about this camera.
I think that the LUTs was definitely an odd choice for that, if we're going to talk about it briefly.
Yes.
I love it. I love it using it. I think like it's a lot of fun. Again, all the photos, every single photo I shot and uploaded to Instagram, I took directly out of the camera as a JPEG from the LUT system and put it right to Instagram, right? For better or for worse. Some of them are really good photos, and some of them are like, maybe I would have taken less contrast or whatever. Who cares? Again, it's just like, it's the shooting experience that I'm vibing for something like this, like Fujifilm is doing. I think they're taking a swing at that. I think Sony needs to try this. I think Canon has the best opportunity of any company to make a camera in this vein, or even the Nikon ZF style camera. Like all these companies, I think they're seeing the writing on the wall with the X100V and now the X100VI. And they're like, okay, people get it. Cameras are good. How can we make something now that's fun and interesting to use that people don't pick up and they're like, oh, it's time to work. It's like, I'm going to pick this up and go, I think I'm just going to go walk around Nashville and shoot some photos today, right? Which I have not done in a long time. Last time I did that was when I got my film camera and I was like, oh, this is fun. And I think that this camera is going to unlock that for people. And again, if it's not this camera for you, maybe it's the next one that comes out from XYZ company. But I think this style of camera is what the industry is hungry for.
Absolutely. And I've always been a person who actually does have fun playing with cameras. That's why I got into YouTube camera reviews in the first place. You might remember Connor, just because we were so close and we lived very close to each other, especially in California. Like anytime I'd get a new camera in for a review, I was just like fiddling with it and playing with it. And I've always been finding random accessories and random little adapters and just trying to I got a Sony lens adapter for the Nikon camera. So now I can use the 28, which is my favorite focal length. And I like that lens, the 28 2.0 Sony on the Nikon. It's like, well, why would you go to all that trouble? It's like, I don't know. I like it. It's like, so this is totally like scratching that itch for me, is like just playing with all these goofy little things. Here's another solution I have. It's like, well, it doesn't have a flash sync. Well, look what I found on Amazon for $12. This teeny tiny Ulanzi light with a 95 plus CRI, daylight balanced only, but who cares? I was thinking of like taping it on here. I could literally like use Velcro and stick it on the side to make it even smaller, but it has this nice little hot shoe mount, in this case, cold shoe. And yes, there's no flash sync. Yes, there's no mechanical shutter, but when you're taking a picture with a constant light source, it works. So I can now, there's like 4 settings. That's also an SOS setting. So there's level
Because
1.
why not?
Yeah, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. USB charging, a nice little readout on the back of the battery life. There's 3 bars. I'm at 2 bars right now, so I know when it's at 1, I'm going to have to charge it up. But I just turn it on briefly, take my picture, boom. It gives me a nice little fill light. I can obviously pop it off very easily and use it off camera a little bit. They even have a nice little soft, little diffusion softness thing if I want, but I find it's soft enough already. And this is a cool little solution. I can stick this in my pocket. It's so tiny. That kind of solves my lack of a flash, and is that dumb? Oh yeah, that's really dumb. Am I dumb? Yeah, I'm pretty dumb. So
I would say you're goofy, not dumb.
I'm goofy. Yeah, like I've always, as a person, as a camera nerd, I've always had goofy little things, and I carry it around with me everywhere I go. And so I think people might be a little judgmental of our opinions on this camera. It's like, oh, it's fun. It's got the LUTs, and it's like, and some people might not relate to that. They're like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not a logical camera. And you're right, it's not. But I actually enjoy this. It's actually a legitimately fun thing for me. Okay?
Yeah.
But
yeah. I think that's just it. This camera doesn't make sense on paper. And truly, I was in that same camp when I saw it. And until I turned it on and used it because here's the thing. Normally when I am making videos about stuff, like I'm going to turn it on, I'm going to start like kind of making content almost immediately, right? Because that's the nature of the game, right? So it's like, okay. And honestly, most cameras are the same.
Yeah.
So you can pretty much just be like, okay, so like you could almost have one script that's for any camera and then just replace the names, just like, oh yeah, so not Sony, now we're talking about Lumix, right?
Yeah.
This camera was so weird to me that like I shot something and then I deleted it, and then I shot something else and then I deleted it, and I shot something else. And it wasn't until like day 5 of using this camera that I was like, oh, this is what I want. Because again, like I said, it was like after 5 days of shooting photos and trying to make content about video.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, I'm using it like this and I'm having a blast. That's the video that I need to make. And it's the video I ended up going with.
For sure.
But I will make more content about this for video. I kind of want to talk about it for anamorphic because it's hilarious. It doesn't make sense, but it's hilarious. So it's like, I want my cameras I want cameras that are for fun. I want cameras that are for work. And I want cameras that are ridiculous. I have a Coca-Cola film camera. Sue me, like, we all have different things that we want. And I think I'm talking to people like I'm talking to all of you guys in the audience. I know that a lot of you guys are like super chill, and you guys are in the same boat as us. We're just here to have fun. Dave's holding a camcorder right now.
I've been having a ton of fun with this old $400 Sony AX100 camera that came out in 2013. And it was, and it's dumb, but I like it, and it's fun. And I've been taking this out, filming my kids. That's who I am as a person. I'm a weirdo. People look at me and they think I'm a weirdo. So you got to remember, this is a full frame camera with really good image quality, really great video. And by the way, we didn't even mention the autofocus. I feel like has gotten so good with Lumix. It's finally,
I agree.
I think it surpassed Fuji's video autofocus.
Oh, easily surpassed
and
Fuji's.
Maybe in the Nikon autofocus world, it's definitely not Canon, Sony yet, but Nikon has good autofocus now for video, and Lumix I think is right there. If not maybe better in some cases. I don't know. I haven't done a side-by-side test. It's certainly better.
I would say that because in Japan, again, one of the things that I made this comment to, I can't remember who, it might have been Terry. I was like, has the autofocus missed for you? Because I feel like the S9 autofocus is like weirdly good. Because normally, like with Lumix, you kind of expect it to be pretty good. Like, oh yeah, it works 95% of the time, but like 5% of the time, it just kind of does something weird, like it went rogue. That just didn't happen at all.
Yeah.
With the S9, it doesn't mean it won't happen. I haven't used it that long, 10 days. But so far, it hasn't missed for photos or for video. So I don't know.
Yeah, it seems to be doing great. I miss having a joystick. I'm the type
Oh
of
God, yeah, true.
I'm a shooter who uses the little joystick quite a bit because I do use the autofocus like face tracking, but when there isn't a face in the shot, it defaults to single point because I like to control where the focus is going to go. And so if a face isn't in the shot, and by the way, I am constantly on my S5 when I'm taking pictures, turning off face tracking so that I can control where I want the focus literally going. And having that joystick is very good. So I do miss that. I don't personally like the way that you move the point around is by touching the screen, which I don't like because the little D-pad is set up to be white balance ISO and stuff. But when you do push that selection point on the D-pad, then you can use the D-pad. Did you find a solution to the lack of a focus point selection?
Yeah, so that was definitely, actually, I probably should have brought it up in the video. It's hard to remember everything when you're making these videos, especially when you're making them on location. Normally, I like to script them so I don't forget things, but this is a good thing to bring up in the podcast. So yeah, you had to press over on here, and then you could use the D-pad to select your focus. So it's like press and then move it around. That was a solution. I didn't love that. So I actually just started treating this like a DSLR, like almost like my 70D. And I would, do the whole, like, if I wanted something framed, or if I wanted something on the left focus, I would look at it, hold focus, move it back, click the photo, right? So I was doing the old school method with this camera. It's awful. Everything is bad. No, that was one of the things that I said personally to my friends. And again, I didn't bring it up in the video because I forgot. I do wish it had a joystick. That would have been a nice last little thing to put on this thing.
Yeah, but again, I think because of the marketing and what they feel this is for, beginners don't even look at an M50. Look at all your budget options. Most of them don't have joysticks. So,
yeah. Remember the Canon EOS R original?
Yeah, the Canon EOS R, which was their main mirrorless camera, didn't have one. You're right. It had that weird.
And you know what? We did raise a big stink about that one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We did. And then I bought it, and then I personally used it for a long time.
Everybody complained about that camera, and then everybody ended up using it, and they're still active in the world today. I think I was watching I forget which channel I was watching, but it was a big channel, and that's their main camera. They're shooting 1080p on the EOS R still, because with YouTube it doesn't matter. I heard that because by the way, when it comes to the record limits for video on this, it does seem very firmware based. Don't quote me on this, but because like this, it seems like the overheating is quite well managed, because I don't think anybody experienced any overheating. It just cuts out after that period of time. Maybe, again, don't ever buy something for a maybe here in terms of firmware updates, but maybe Panasonic could fix this.
Same as the R5. I think they can.
Yeah. So it'd be cool if 1080p turns out doesn't have any issues with overheating. It'd be cool if they just enabled 1080p continuous. That'd be cool. I'd be okay with that. And 4K, 30 minutes, 6K, 20 minutes, like just kind of inch it up a little bit more would be nice. I think they're a little conservative on these things. If they could remove it completely, that'd be wonderful. But at the very minimum, could we at least get 1080p unlimited? That'd be nice.
I think that Lumix is, and again, I'm talking out my butt here a little bit. I think that Lumix is kind of known for cameras that don't overheat ever. So they're very conscious of that. So this camera, like, you can put it in the highest quality mode, record all the way up to the 15-minute mark, start, stop for hours, and it won't overheat, right? So I think that they're just being overly safe for the sake of
based on the
brand.
Again, based on the very limited reviews that we did you do an official overheating test or not?
I personally did not. However, I know someone who did, and he said he just went in his room and just kept hitting record over and over again. And he did it for about 2 hours, and he said he had no overheating issues. Now, it's in a room which is in controlled air, so, not in the sunlight. But the point is, this camera is probably capable of recording longer. I think that they just didn't want to have an R5 situation with it actually overheating. So they're just being conservative. But I think that if everyone's loud enough, which we are right now for sure, I think that that's something that they could fix in a firmware update. And again, I don't think these cameras ship for a long time, so they could probably fix it before it even comes out. Who knows?
Well, yes, but then also I also saw that it may be sooner than I also assumed as well. I was assuming it wasn't coming until like late summer, like August, September time, but I also have heard maybe mid-June coming up, which would be great, which is I think maybe why we're not seeing that other lens yet. They might ship the body only, or they're selling a kit that comes with a 20 to 60, which I don't like. It's not that I don't like it. It's actually a fine lens. It's just bigger and heavier.
And I personally don't like that lens either. But other people will like it just fine. I just don't like kit lenses. I don't like a variable aperture. I don't want that.
Yeah. But then you're going to have a bigger, chunkier lens. But the Sigma makes a really nice compact constant. What is it? It's like a 28 to 70, I think. Yeah, 28 to 70 f2.8. That's actually significantly smaller and lighter than the 24 to 70. And that's a full frame lens. And don't forget, guys, this camera does have a very good APS-C crop mode. So that was something I was kind of complaining about. I was like, not complaining about, but it's like, I wish this was like Micro Four Thirds, because then you could have smaller lenses. Well, you could treat it like an APS-C camera because of this small size. Just buy, I think Sigma makes, I think it's an 18 to 50 or something. Yeah, the Sigma 18 to 50. Leica L f2.8. It's $500 and it's teeny tiny little lens, constant f2.8. So yeah, it's a crop, but it's a capable crop. It's still 4K. It's not like the A7S, which is only 12 megapixels. And if you're just using it for social media, that loss in resolution isn't going to matter anyways for Instagram posts and whatnot. So that is a solution to that. I haven't really seen anybody really consider, because we're all so full frame obsessed. But if you actually throw APS-C lenses on here, it's smaller and lighter, and it works fine. So anyways, is there anything else that you want to talk about here? I mean,
no, I think we should probably wrap this up. But I think, just again, guys, like, let's just all out there, and I'm not saying any of you guys are doing it that are listening to the podcast, but even still, it's just like, let's just remember to be nice to each other. We're all in this community. We all love cameras. We're all nerds, and we're just talking about cameras. So there's really no reason to get bent out of shape.
Absolutely. And I think the overall conversation is a valid one. I'm not going to say that it's wrong. I think there is an important conversation being had right now about this whole influencer gets free camera thing, because in the past, in traditional journalism, people who went to real actual journalistic, school, work for the Wall Street Journal, work for Consumer Reports, we're talking, 90s, early 2000s, even now, you still have those companies like Wall Street Journal that still exist and have journalists cover tech. The rules are different, and the things were basically like the company would have to buy the product so that there was no bias. And I think Consumer Reports notoriously was kind of the premier, it was a magazine. It was like the premier source for really authentic, true reviews of products that everyday Americans needed, like refrigerators and laundry machines and vacuum cleaners, etc. And people would go there to get an unbiased review of the product. And their philosophy was, we will not accept any free equipment. We will never receive any, we'll never talk to the companies. We will never be wined and dined. And that would ruin the integrity of that review because of that format. And I think that's a valuable thing in our space as well. If it was possible for a creator to buy every camera that they review, and if an audience ended up loving that content and supporting the content, maybe through Patreon or something, maybe that creator would make more money or would have to make a living through supporters rather than sponsorships and stuff. And yeah, I think this is just a valid, real conversation we should be having. But if a creator decides, you know what, I could do that, or I also enjoy this and I'm just going to try to be as honest as I can. You can watch the videos if you want or not. Doesn't matter. You know, it is what it is. So
yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I think at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I don't know about you, Dave, but I'm not rich, so I can't afford to buy all these things to talk about them. So that does make it difficult. So I accept these things with the intention of I'm still going to be as honest as I can be. And as long as they keep inviting me, I'm going to keep going. Maybe eventually I'll say something mean enough that they won't let me come back. That's fine. I haven't been to the last 2 condos, so who knows? So, you know, it's like,
we're not
it just
entitled.
is.
We're not entitled to anything, and they're not. And believe it or not, they are not entitled to our reviews either. It's
well, that's what I was gonna. That was the last point I was gonna make. Is at the end of the day, that we're providing free content on YouTube. Like, you know, you don't pay for these reviews, right? That being said, maybe that's a better format. Maybe people. I don't know about you guys though. I don't want to pay for news. I prefer to just watch a bunch of YouTube videos, and then, you know, everyone's going to have their own opinion, and then I take all the opinions, and then I go, what's my opinion, right? And that's how I consume content in news. But maybe there's a future where we all look at ourselves and go, okay, I'm never going to talk to Lumix again, which I think they're great people, by the way, but I'm never going to talk to Lumix again. Well, somehow I got to be able to afford the camera. So then maybe it is a Patreon or something. But then the question is the audience willing to support that kind of news media? Mm-hmm. Maybe.
And are they patient? Are they patient enough to wait a month to 3 months before the thing actually ships? That's the other thing is,
right.
The game on YouTube is the person who's first wins. And when you're playing the game of YouTube, you make money in our niche mostly by sponsorships, not necessarily ad revenue, because the viewership is so low in relation to other niches. A healthy kind of gear review channel would probably be pulling like 20 to 50,000 views. That's pretty much it. You obviously have the outliers who get way more than that. You also have people who are actually doing it part-time, or maybe even full-time, that are getting even less views than that. But those views are valuable views to brands because it's a group of people who might be interested in building a website. So Squarespace would make sense to sponsor that creator, or that might be an audience who needs stock footage. And so Storyblocks is going to consider sponsoring that creator. And in order to get views, sometimes you got to be first or have an interesting opinion or talk about new things. And in the past, that's been the incentive, is just get the review out as quickly as possible. But now that so many people are a part of this conversation and so many people are getting things early, maybe there's a world where we as creators can start to get creative and think, okay, well, what's another way that we could be in this world, talk about gear, enjoy cameras, enjoy filmmaking, but also kind of do it on our own path. And I'm inspired by Zach Mayfield, our mutual friend, who has had a great experience reviewing retro cameras. And I think there's a big push to doing that, because that's why I got this camcorder, because I am bored of the camera industry quite a bit, and this has been a fun thing to play around with. And so we can just start to get more creative with like ways to share stuff. But if I want to be in this game of reviewing this stuff, and they invite me to a trip and I like the camera, I'm going to share my thoughts, and no harm, no foul in my opinion. But as long as you're being completely honest with your disclosures and whatnot. So I don't know. Every creator is going to have to decide for themselves, and every viewer can decide if they want to watch that creator or not. Hopefully we were as honest as we can be here. One other honest thing, a little bit of feedback if Panasonic's watching. Really wish you guys made a better microphone on this, because if this had a good built-in mic, it would sound that sounded actually halfway decent. It'd be nice to just, quickly do a quick vlog like this and have a good mic. That's a bit of a downer for me. I was hoping to have like a decent mic. I know they want me to put put a mic on it, but now it's big. Now it's big again, and I don't like that. So it would.
I was just using my lavs so that it is tiny.
That's true. Yeah,
so it's just, I just do this. My setup is now still super tiny, but then I'm holding the mic. That's what I did my whole video. I held the mic. Well, except when I clipped it to my shirt and it flopped away from me, and then the sound was pretty bad. I was pretty mad. I was pretty mad at myself for that. Like, it's like half of this sounds great and half of it sounds awful. But I was like, whatever, send it. anyways, I think, guys, hopefully, like Dave says, hopefully, we've been honest through this, and hopefully you guys feel that we've been honest through it. I think a little bit of my saltiness, if you've detected it, is just because I feel like people have been really talking at me instead of talking to me. And that never feels good. So, but I don't want that to continue. So let's just bury the drama. Let's move on. And
for sure,
the S9 is a lot of fun, has a lot of problems. Buy it when it's used.
Yeah, I think, like you were saying, Connor, neither one of us have like a massive pile of cash that we're sitting on. And so let me just end by asking you if you can try your best to remove yourself from the position you're in. With the amount of money that you're making right now, would you spend $1,500 on this camera? Objectively?
No, and I said it in my video. I think $1,500 is too much for this camera for what it offers. I think I would spend $1,300, which is pretty close to that number, but I do think that that's probably the number I would settle on for a good price on this camera. So again, I think if you're looking at it now, I don't make TikTok videos, so the value is lower to me, and I would buy an S5 II or 2X. But yeah, I would wait for it to go on sale and then buy it as a B camera. That's what I would do.
Same here. Like, my current situation is I'm making thumbnail content for a thumbnail channel, which is all just sitting here at this desk with a webcam. And I do webcam calls all day with clients, and then I take pictures of my family. So if all my cameras that I have right now just vanished, which by the way is this Sony camcorder. I've got a little Canon point and shoot. I've got a C70 collecting dust over here, which is an actual camera that I do actually own. And then 2 S5s, and then this thing, which is a lot of cameras. I acknowledge that. If it all vanished, and with the money that I'm making right now, would I buy this camera? I don't think so. I think the S5 II makes more sense. It's a better value. And
it's a better value
because I am a professional, somewhat, doing long takes, and I occasionally get hired by our mutual friend Jim Cook to shoot things. The Lumix S5 II is I think the best bargain camera right now all around. Some people might argue that the FX30 would also be that, and fair point, it can be as well. I just like the EVF. I like the color science here. I like the stabilization better here.
Full frame.
And it's full frame, exactly. So I think if you were to have one camera right now, and you're kind of on a like mid-tier budget, budget would be like, I guess you'd have to get like an old M50 or like a R50 or something, but and you can get away buying older things that are still good for like, $1,000. That's possible. But
yeah,
on the market
nothing
right
wrong,
now,
nothing wrong with yesterday's tech.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with yesterday's tech at all. It's all good. This is just, we're a conversation about a new camera that just came out 10 days ago. Wait for it to go on sale. Buy it for $1,200 on eBay.
Exactly. And an EOS R right now on eBay is $900, and R50, which is a pretty decent little crop lens, that's camera with a lens, is $699 on
there you go.
On the old eBay. So anyways, if I were playing that hypothetical game, I had about $2,000 to spend on a camera and maybe one lens, I think the S5 II is legitimately a great option. As I've used it over the last year, really enjoyed it. I really like the color. I like the overall use case. Sony is also a great option, and there's plenty of great cameras there too. I just find that the Lumix has more for me as a video shooter than, say, the A7C, which I think a lot of people are comparing this to. And I don't think it's a fair comparison because it's bigger and it's not as fun. This is a fun thing.
Yeah, I would compare this to the Nikon ZF. That could be a fun video. Very different camera still, but like they both hit the fun category.
For sure. And that has,
so, anyways,
and that doesn't really have any limitations. That's actually a full, you could use that as a work tool, right?
Yeah. So
that's 1900. It's more money, but
more money.
Anyways, that was our podcast. We came out of retirement, Connor. That was fun. I don't even know when the last episode was. We did the Stallman one with the clamp.
Yeah,
it's like months ago.
It's like 4 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was fun. I think, if you guys are okay with it, if you're still subscribed, thank you so much for listening. If you guys are okay with it, we're just gonna we're not closing this up. We're gonna do this occasionally. I am very busy. Connor's very busy. But hopefully you enjoyed this impromptu / probably much needed discussion. I am curious to hear your thoughts. So please comment down below if you're watching the YouTube video. And if you're listening, head over to YouTube so you can comment, because you can't really comment on a podcast. I'd love to see your comments.
And remember, it's okay to dislike a camera, but let's just be nice to each other.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.